get it. Hey, and we're officially live, and I am back on the Killer Be Killed podcast. My good buddy Josh, and of course I'm Damien. And if you're listening to this, you're one of a few, very few,
a growing.
but growing. Yeah, I was away for a couple weeks. It's all good. I just want to say shout out to our latest instructor, Chris Bank, out of Georgia. Just signed up today, so congratulations,
awesome,
Chris. Welcome to the team.
Yeah, hope you're watching.
Yeah, man. So it's been an interesting couple weeks, man.
Yeah. Did you watch the 2 shows that we did without you?
No, I saw the no, I did not.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I don't watch the ones that I'm not on either, so it's fine.
I don't watch any. One, I can't stand my voice, so I'm never listening. I'm dumping this, and I'm like, that's it. You know, I'm not. So you told me what you guys were talking about. And it's been nuts. I think maybe we should, one thing I do want to start with, because I think it's pertinent is, did you see the, I guess the vice mayor of the city in Los Angeles calling on gangbangers to attack ICE agents?
I have not heard of this. That's
she posted it on Twitter, so I'm going to share that with everybody. A vice mayor is like a deputy mayor of this city. Let me just share screen. Allow. Don't tell me. Okay, here we go. Share. All right. So, oh shit! Didn't want to do that. Okay. Yeah, per federal sources, the vice mayor of Cudahy City. I'm butchering that. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Never even heard of it.
A city in southeast Los Angeles is under FBI investigation after she allegedly, posted a video to social media, which she appears to call for the 18th Street and Florencia at 13 gang members to defend their territory. Hold on, I'm just going to mute her on here. So to defend their territory and get your effing members in order. I'm told Cynthia Gonzalez posted the video late last week, then deleted it, and that the FBI later visited her home, and she's under active federal investigation. Gonzalez posted on her social media that FBI came to her house, and she needs a lawyer. FBI LA tells Fox they cannot confirm or deny an investigation, but they condemn any call for gang violence. We've reached out to Gonzalez via phone and email, awaiting her response. No response from her or the city. So here we go.
Not for nothing, but I want to know where all the cholos are at in Los Angeles. 18th Street, Florencia. Where's the leadership at? Because you guys are all about territory, and this is 18th Street, and this is Florencia. You guys tag everything up, claiming hood. And now that your hood's being invaded by the biggest gang there is, there ain't a peep out of you. It's everyone else who's not about the gang life that's out there protesting and speaking up. We're out there like fighting our turf, protecting our turf, protecting our people. And like, where you at? Bien calladitos, todos los chulitos. I'm like, dude, they're running amok all up on your streets and in your city. And Pete, when the big gang guns come in, nothing but like quiet, and we're out here, the regular ones that have never been jumped in, out here calling things out, trying to organize people, trying to do the thing. So don't be trying to claim no block, no nothing. If you're not showing up right now, trying to like help out and organize, I don't want to hear a peep out of you once they're gone, trying to claim that this is my block. This was not your block. You weren't even here helping out. So whoever's the leadership over there, just fucking get your members in order.
Jeez.
So yeah, I'm a little like it's 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 weird that someone can feel so comfortable as a public official calling for gang violence against the federal government and refer to the federal government. And I get that because right wingers do it too, refer to the federal government as a gang, right? So yeah, um,
Yeah, I mean the U.S. military's biggest gang in the world.
yeah, right. It is. So yeah, I'm not gonna, she's not wrong there, but again, kudos to her. She obviously is from the neighborhood. Um, she's definitely down
Ooh.
with the terminology. I was like, oh, damn, man. So, but, you know, I, I don't know, it's if she were a comedian, it would be funny, right? So it's like,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah,
you got like some pasty white kids out here, we're the gangbangers, right? So it's like I
yeah.
get that's like the makings of a good comedy bit right there. But
But it's not.
it's not, and she's freaking serious.
Ooh.
I
Uh, I like how they're like allegedly posted. Even if she didn't post it, she still
right,
filmed it and somebody else posted it.
right, exactly. Oh, true. Good point. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, yeah.
But like you're
Allegedly
obviously on camera talking about it.
talking about it, uh, and you people, when I say, whoever you got, you elected, right? I mean, this is, the elected. I don't think the deputy mayor. I don't know if that's a vice mayor. I don't know if that's an elected position or not. But either way, she obviously
It's
holds
going
the same
crazy.
view, similar
Yeah.
views as the people that got elected. And
Well, and here's the thing is she's expressing this views enough outside of this video that she then thought I should just post this in a video because I've had these thoughts and I've said these thoughts enough times that now I'm just going to say it in video and post it.
somebody confirmed it. Like, hey, that's a really great idea, Sydney.
Yeah, like you're
I
right.
like
Like where are
where,
they,
where are they? There's bullshit. They're not tough. We're
Yeah.
tough. Yeah. Good.
Mm,
So yeah, so I
brutal.
figured, that's what you're getting, and that's what we have in a lot of places where you're electing people that really, listen, aren't American. And I'm all for, it's one thing if they were actually peaceful protests. I mean, God bless Florida, man. They're like, you're allowed to run them over if they get in the way of your car. You know, did you hear that? Yeah. I'm like, look, um, yeah, I bet you nobody gets in any front of anybody's car in Florida.
Yeah, Texas, same thing. Texas apparently passed where you can run protesters over if they're in your way. If
Yeah,
they're
for
like
impeding your
assaulting your
way.
vehicle.
I mean, obviously, there may come a time where someone was, I don't know, maybe they're standing close to the curb. Somebody comes by and clips them. I could see that argument being made, but it would have, but
I mean, it's gonna come down to like everything else in self-defense law, right? You're gonna have to justify your actions.
right.
Was there a way around it? Or did you just plow people over? You know what I mean? Like
I mean,
it's not free reign. It's not free reign to just run people over, right?
it's Josh, it's Death Race 2000. This is, where I'm Frankenstein and I'm going to get as many points as possible. Hey, yeah, man. But again, it is like common sense and in consideration. I understand. First of all, like the amount of people that you're seeing, or I didn't know, even if I saw one, it was a lot. But the amount of people who are saying they got paid to protest, I don't know if it's real. I don't know if it's not real. I don't know what. I don't know.
Well,
You know.
they're tracking the money, and I think Soros just got slapped with like 4 or 5 years in prison or something like that
Oh,
because he's been
really? I didn't
funding
know.
stuff like this. Yeah, yeah,
This I know. I mean, I know he's been funding, radical local government elections.
yeah.
And that's probably the smart way to do it. That's a smart way to do it. Screw the presidency. I can take, instead of taking 100, let's just call it, I don't know, $100 million and put it in one election. I could take $50,000 and put it in thousands of elections. If a local politician got 50 grand to like run, He's gonna
They do.
crush it. He's gonna crush it.
Yeah.
You know, I just, you know,
Yeah, and the it's the communities that then make up the nation, right? I was having this discussion with
Right.
someone the other day,
oh, Clayton's
and
shouting out.
yeah, I saw him.
Yep. And thanks, man. Yeah, cheap wood ornaments is right. So what were you saying? I'm sorry. Got
It's
Clayton
okay, it's
distracted
okay.
me.
But this ironically, I don't know if you chose it on purpose or not, but yeah.
No, it's
So
not.
this ironically leads right into what we're
that's
going
why
to be
I
talking
chose it.
about. Yeah.
That's why I chose
Yeah,
it.
yeah. That's what I figured. That's what I
thought it-
figured.
I thought it appropriate. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like I said, like for government, if you really want to make a difference in your life, even though the people are generally insane and they're normally people that you probably wouldn't want to hang out with, you know, get involved in your local government if you really want to like have an impact of government on your life. I mean, really, I mean that's what affects what gets built, you know, what happens
Yeah.
in your town, where the money goes and stuff like that. Yeah, obviously you're voting in these big elections and so, but if you want to really do it, that's why I joined the fire department. That's why I was involved for a while, you know, with the Republican club, and because there was some shit going on that we didn't like. We went on spring break and we came back, and there was a cell tower like next to the school. And we're like, how the hell? Where the hell did this come from? Oh, we passed it. Why? Because nobody came to. The only people that went to like the council
The
meetings
town
are
halls
like,
and stuff. Yeah.
are they're insane or like a billion years old, you know. And God love them,
Sad but true.
like,
It's sad but true.
yeah, you know, you go in, all of a sudden it was like, you know, and you get people that are just up there, the mayor and his buddy, and they're like, yeah, let's do, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. And there's like nobody really questioning or researching
Yeah,
it.
anybody have anything to say against this? No, it'll bring in X amount of revenue dollars to the city. Anybody care? No. All right, cool.
Yeah,
Pass.
no, okay, fine. Yeah, I think it was something like 40 at the time. It was like 40 grand a month we were making. And then everybody said, they were saying like it was you know, we needed it for better first responder communication on our radios. And to be honest, our radio still sucked because we're like in we're in a valley, and it was like how like the signal went. It just, dude, it was awful. So yeah. So anyway, yeah. So we'll segueing into today's podcast. You got it, man.
Yeah, which is the continuation of last week. For those that joined last week, we ended with talking about the potential for China to invade the West Coast. And I was like, with that juicy bit, we'll move into this week. And so what we're going to go over loosely is the unconventional warfare pyramid, which unconventional warfare is like revolutions and all those kinds of things. And then and how what's going on across the West Coast and the U.S. in general. Is that indicative of foreign influence, and could it lead to a potential invasion by China? And we'll see where it takes us.
Okay.
All right, let me share my screen here. That's the okay. There we go. Share screen. That one. Share. Hey, there we are. All right. Oh, it's kind of small, but let's see. Can I? Oh, I can blow it up. Excellent.
There you go. Look at that.
Okay, so this is the unconventional warfare pyramid. So in the top, in the yellow, you have overt action, which means people can see what's going on. It's being talked about. You know, it's broadcasted. Everybody knows. And then you have the clandestine operation, like an iceberg and everything else that happens in the world. You only see the very tip top piece, and then all the rest of it is hidden, right? And same with unconventional warfare. The vast majority of it is hidden, and that's the clandestine side. And so while some of these require or work as like a step level system, some of it and most of it interchanges back and forth because they're just things that are part of the formula. And so it's like you put a little bit here, 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 and then you pull and you push, and you pull and you push. Okay. So in the bottom, we have, and for anybody, hide that. For anybody who hasn't seen the video, which I think we've talked about before on this podcast, is of that Russian dude who talked about how America is being primed for a communist
Yuri,
revolution.
that was from the 80s. It was Yuri Bezmenov. Yeah, but yes, yeah, it's awesome. It's crazy because it's happening.
Because it's happening. Yeah. So for anybody who hasn't seen it, I thought about bringing up like a quick clip of it or whatever, but I shouldn't have time to preload it. But for anybody who thinks that it's not happening and hasn't been happening for decades, is sleeping under a rock and hasn't looked into it. And we're going to talk about the things that they use here, which he talks about in his little interview, and then how this applies to potentially China and why China could make use of this stuff as well as just the general unrest to further their goals. Okay. So first thing you need in order for unconventional warfare to work, without it, it just doesn't happen, is dissatisfaction with political, economic, social, administrative, and or other conditions, national aspirations, usually independence, and or desire for ideological or other changes. Okay.
I mean, these always exist.
Yeah.
Even in the best of times, everybody, there's somebody's pissed off about what the other side's doing because everybody's got their own opinion. So this is constant.
It's constant. Yeah, exactly. It's constant, right? But it's more than one person. It's more than two people, right? But that's how it starts, right? So when you talk about like covert psychological operations, what happens is, a government sends some operatives into a community, right? A small community, not usually a big one, a small one, because usually you find dissatisfied people in the fringes and not inside the deep set cities, because the deep set cities are more reliant on the government for their needs already. And so you go out to the fringes and you find those like farmers and the, whatever, who are dissatisfied because the big city people are taking their stuff and they want, they're just dissatisfied, right? So you find like the 2, 3, 4 people, and then hey, how are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, you build a relationship with them, and then you start flaming or inflaming those ideas, right? And then you start gathering a few more people. Then you gather a few more people, and now you've got like, you started with 3 or 4, now you've got like 20, and then you start building a little bit more, and then those 20 start branching out, and then you say, hey, and then you send more operatives, right? And so you've got operatives in all these little communities that are gathering their 5, 10, 15, 20 people. And then over the course of 10, 15, 20, 30, how many ever years, right? Depending on how fast you can do it, how dissatisfied people are already, you build your foundation, right? So you do that then with the creation of atmosphere of wider discontent through propaganda, lies, and political and psychological effort. Discredit the government, police, and military authorities.
You've already
so
done
that's
that.
what that person's doing. Yeah. So that's what that person's doing. The person is saying, like, hey, look at that police guy over there. I mean, what did we have a couple of years ago? Well, I don't know, defund the police, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So you start saying, hey, get rid of this. We hate that program. These people are corrupt, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't that make you mad? And then people are like, yeah, right. And then while that's going on, assassinations or the forming of favorable public opinion, advocating national cause, or creation of distrust of established institutions. It's kind of the same level, but it's like more targeted to specific people and or institutions, and assassination if need be. Yep,
it's happened.
Sure it has.
It's happened. It's 2 attempts and 1 actual successful killing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or even 2 if you talk about those ones in Missouri that just happened.
Right. That's right. So that would be 3, because I'm thinking about the healthcare, U.S. healthcare, and then obviously 2 on Trump, and the 2 in Missouri that just happened. It's like, holy crap! This is like, it's going on. I mean, Yes.
Yeah. Right. So then agitation continues to increase, right? And then they start infiltrating the administration, police, military, national organizations.
Right.
They institute slowdowns and strikes. Well, have we seen anything like that?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then when you have slowdowns and strikes, what happens? You have more dissatisfied people, right?
Right.
Okay. And then you start infiltrating, actual. So now you can bring in you created enough of a foothold that you can bring in your actual foreign agents, right? Not just like some covert dude who's, completely off the books,
right?
But actual agents who can come in and say, hey, we'll support you from the back, right? Hey, we'll give you some money. Hey, we'll give you a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You need a little support, we got you. Just don't tell it came
Right.
from us. Shh, right?
Right.
Okay. So now those people are now infiltrating, right? And then you recruit, keep recruiting more people, always recruiting.
Yep.
And then indoctrination and use of these for organizational purposes. Hey, do we see a lot of indoctrination? Have we seen a lot of indoctrination over the last few years, especially?
Constantly. It's constant. You know,
it's constant. It's constant.
It's constant. And you're looking at, what did we go from? Okay, went to COVID, monkey virus, Ukraine. Then we're off of Ukraine. We're on Palestine. Now we're on to Iran. So
just think about the woke agenda, right? I mean, has that not been a systematic indoctrination starting slowly in like the 1990s?
Yeah,
right?
It was PC. We were politically correct. That's what it was, right? And then
it's morphed and it's morphed and it's morphed and it's morphed. And now we're like, we must accept like clinical psychological issues and embrace them. And if you don't, you're wrong, right? Is that not indoctrination?
Right. Yeah, so. And I'm listening, to I guess my kids' generation, especially, with my daughter, because she's coming from an art school, and there are definitely sets of things or words that if you say would trigger a response. Like there's programming there, where I'm like, why are you even paying attention to that word or that, or saying this? And you're like, holy crap, yeah, that takes a lot of energy, to constantly be okay.
It takes a lot of energy to combat it when it's constantly pounding you, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my God, impossible. Your peer groups, everything's tied to it. Yeah.
I heard it once from a very wise person that if you go to college and get a degree, especially if you get a degree in a fine arts program, you cannot, or a humanities program, you cannot walk out of there without some indoctrination.
Right.
And you don't even realize it. It's at some level you were swayed this way or that way, and you didn't even realize it. Right.
Right.
There's multiple examples of teachers in elementary schools, junior highs, and high schools who are actively indoctrinating. There was this one teacher, he got in trouble. I forget who it was. This came out like a year or two ago. And over the course of like the decade that he's been teaching there, he had a chart up or a line up on his wall. And it was like the conservative hard right and like super liberal left. Right. And he, at the beginning of the year, he would be like, okay, where do you think you fall on this line? And people would put their things up. And then at the end of the year, he'd be like, now where do you fall on this line? And overwhelmingly every year they would shift to the left because that was his goal. And then year after year, he was able to show that the students went from conservative to moderate to now left to begin with.
Wow.
And he got in trouble for it because he was actively propagating and indoctrinating.
Right. And having a measurable result.
Exactly. And this is one teacher. This is one teacher in one school. Now imagine you have these people that have infiltrated all of these areas nationwide, all the schools, even down to the elementary level school, right? It starts in the universities, and then what becomes acceptable at the universities, right? The high schools then try to mimic, so then it becomes acceptable to high school. Same thing. The junior high then wants to mimic the high schools, so then it becomes acceptable. And then the elementary schools want to prepare you for all that stuff, and so then it becomes acceptable.
It's like, why is it anything but the American flag is at a school? Right?
And state flag.
State flag. Yeah. So, that's what it is. There should be no other flags.
Yeah.
I mean, unless we're having like Italian month, but other than that, it's like, and that's been, you can see it, slowly, it's been the course over, it took about, I would say 30 years to get to this point. It's probably started.
It's been more than that. We're going to talk about this, but it's been more than that.
Because you have McCarthyism. I mean, it's been since it's got to be since World War II.
World War I. the Bolshevik Revolution in 1915. I want to say, don't quote me. It's 1915, between 1914 and 1917, right? I want to say 1915. The day the revolution occurred, they immediately, in the communist mindset was cemented and the communist regime rose. They immediately set their plans to conquer the world. Okay, people don't realize this. They thought it was just in Russia. No, they immediately set out to conquer the world. Right. And so by 1920, we already had communist parties in America. Okay. Now, prior to World War II, well, post World War II, really, when we then went to war with we started the Cold War with Russia, it was just like, oh, you're a communist, whatever. You know what I mean? It was just another political party. Okay. Right. But they knew, right? They'd already started adopting and creating their revolutional, doctrine. How do we create revolutions and create communism around the world? And so it started in, we'll say 1920, right? And so it started then, and they started in the universities, and you can actually see where these people came from, Russia and these other countries that supported socialism, and they actually came and started organizations, started universities here in America to spread their doctrine. So since 1920-ish, okay, what year are we in now, Damien?
Yeah, 2025, I guess. Yeah,
so at least 100 years, Russia, quote unquote, the communism, socialism has been trying to break America. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you watch that interview with whatever his name is,
Yuri Bezmenov.
Yeah. So if you watch that, he talks about how it's been here since at least the 30s, and it is systematic, and they're following a playbook. And the longer they can keep you in each element of the transition, the more effective it is in the end, right? Because what happens if they go too fast, right? You can see this in South America, especially when you use Che Guevara's plays on revolution, when you use his system versus the Russia communist system or the Chinese communist system, you see an immediate backlash, right? Because it's too quick. People don't have time to adjust and fall into a line, right? The only place Che's stuff worked was in Cuba, and Cuba was already primed for it to work. So but anyways, that's a totally different story. So you have this happening, right? Well, we know that Russian communism took a massive downturn in after the Cold War ended and the wall came down, and the USSR broke up, quote unquote, although anybody who knows Putin's background knows that he was a high-ranking official of the KGB. So you think it really went away? Probably not. But they at least got better at hiding it. They're like, oh, hey, we got to be a little bit on the backside again, right? So they just went back into the covert section, right? They said, oh, hey, let's go back to being covert. And then now you have China now too, and China's now, hey, we want to be a superpower, and we want to spread, right? China always has one goal, and Chinese communism is different from Russian communism, which is different from Vietnamese communism, which is different from Cuban communism, right? Every brand of communism is a little bit different because they have their own culture and backgrounds that they bring to it. And Chinese communism, while Russia wants to bring communism to the world, Russian Marxist communism doesn't really care who's in charge, although they want to be in charge, right? They just want communism around the world, one world order, right? China, on the other hand, wants China over the world. And communism just happens to be another form of one of their dynasties, right? If you look at the history of their dynasties, you see that Chinese communism period is really just another dynasty for them. Okay. And they want to see one world under heaven being them, right? That's their term. And that's always been their goal. And prior to the globalization of the world, we'll say modern globalization of the world, you had China, which was in charge of their sphere of the world. And then their world got a whole lot bigger. And then they found Western nations who could match and or trounce them. And then suddenly China was like, whoa, we thought we were the biggest, baddest people on the planet. I guess we're not, right? And so, but that pride of, literally millennia of being, we're the biggest, baddest, we're always going to be in charge. We want to be in charge. It's our divine right to be in charge, right? They still want that. So now you have America, where you've got Russian communism, Marxist communism. You've got Chinese communism here. Maybe a little bit of Cuban communism, but let's be honest, Cuba's just a small island that they
Right.
can't even handle themselves too much. So
No.
so they're not really doing a whole lot here. They're more like proxies for the Russians, but whatever. Okay, so you've got Russian, you got Chinese. Well, China now, Russia's always got their, they had the Cold War and they're like, well, we know we don't want to tangle with America, right? And China is always like, well, we know it's better to, you follow Sun Tzu, it's better to win without using the sword, right?
Right.
China, if you have to fight as a warrior, that means you failed at everything else as a warrior. Right. You literally went to like the basest, you think like Neanderthal, right? And they're like, you went to the basest Neanderthal mode, which is a swing sword, right? They're like, you failed at everything else, right? And so China, they play the generational game because again, right now they're just in another dynasty, and their dynasties last for hundreds of years.
I mean, we're dealing with a culture and a nation that's been like thousands of years old. So
yeah,
they've been doing this forever. Their memory is long and deep, and they don't give a shit about a 4-year term.
No,
they don't care.
No.
It's just we want to get shit done now because we need it now. We don't have that much time. Right. So China, right? So now China is like in this stage of like, hey, we want to be the world's superpower. We want to beat America because if we can beat America, we're number one. And that's what China's goal is, to be number one. Right. So now you have this situation where arguably China didn't quite reach superpower status, or they were pseudo superpower. Right? We have some pseudo superpowers, but they didn't quite match America to where America was like, you're an equal, right? That's never happened yet. No.
Okay. Yeah. They've tried. But the problem that China has is in their long-term plans, right? The way they set themselves up, the way they kind of, shot themselves in the foot, so to speak, is that they focus so much on certain aspects of, China that they neglected some other really important ones, namely population. Okay.
Right.
And so when you look at their projection over the next 10, 20, 30, 50 years, they don't have the population to sustain their current production load. So they can't win economically because they're going to be going down economically. Like it's guaranteed they don't have the population. Militarily, they tried. They stole everything they possibly could. And they've got stuff that matches what we have, but not everything. Right?
And not nearly as much.
And not nearly as much, right? They've got, but they do have stuff that matters, right? To say that China doesn't match us in like aerial craft or missiles and things like that would be wrong, because they do. They just don't have as much of it, right?
Right.
And they're not as proficient in using it because last time China was in conflict was the Korean War, right?
Yeah.
Whereas America lives on conflict.
we are. Yeah, that's what we do. It's our business, and that's the problem.
Yeah, it is America's business. Right. And again, I forget where it was, but I actually did last year, I think it was last year on Memorial Day, I actually went through and I looked up every conflict that America has been in since its inception. And there has not been a single year in American history that we were not in some sort of conflict. Now, not all of them were big and not all of them were super important, but we fought at least one legitimate battle every single year of our inception. I can't think of another country that has done that.
No. I mean, the British Empire at one point.
Maybe at one point, right?
Yeah,
we're talking about one point.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe, possibly. France as well. Sure. For maybe a couple hundred years.
Yeah.
But we're talking modern warfare, and nobody has done it since, right?
No.
We're the most combat experienced nation in the world by far at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So China, so all that to say, China probably didn't reach us, right? And China knows this. Okay.
Plus to your point, because of the population, they don't have a lot of bodies to throw at it.
They still have a lot of bodies.
Yes.
And the problem is they have a lot of bodies right now, but they don't have a lot of bodies in 20 years from now.
Right.
Or 30 years from now. Right.
Yep.
And that's the problem, right? So now we're going to talk about the death throes of a near superpower. Okay. Right. So when a near superpower, and this is like power mechanics, right? It applies to the global level. It applies to like person to person level, right? And this applies to self-defense. Okay. Power mechanics. So if you have somebody who is attaining to greatness and they fell just short, they have two options. Well, two general options, right? There's always more choices, but they have two general options. First option is to accept that they didn't quite make it, humble themselves a little bit, and just accept where they are. Or they can bring the person who's above them down to their level.
Right.
Okay. Now, China, we already know China wants to be number one. It's their divine destiny, quote unquote, right? That's what they think. That's what they want. So is China going to accept that they now have to be number 2 or 3 or 4?
Yeah, no.
Probably not. Probably not. So, hey, all this other stuff has worked to a degree, right? They did all the pen stuff and the maneuvering and economics and blah, 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 blah. And it really helped their nation, but it didn't defeat America. So now their country over the next, because again, China thinks long-term, right? They're not thinking what's happening in 5 years. They're thinking what's happening in 50 years. And in 50 years, they're like, hey, are we going to actually be able to be number 1 in 50 years? And they're like, no, it's not going to happen. America's actually going to continue to rise. And we're going to be left even shorter. They might even fall, not just number 2, because right now they're arguably number 2. They might fall to 3 or 4 or 5, depending on how far down they go.
Right.
And is that okay with China? That's not okay with China. So now you have Russian communist agents, you have Chinese communist agents who have been infiltrating and indoctrinating our nation for roughly 100 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Using this UW program, right? So we talked about how, so they spread subversive organizations, penetrate into professional, social, and political organizations, establish formalized resistance elements, appeal to extraterritorial support infrastructure. Hey, have we seen any of that?
No.
No. Yeah. Maybe Antifa, maybe BLM, which are socialist organizations.
Quick question: what happened to the Patriots and the Proud Boys? I don't see them anywhere.
What happened to them? I don't know. Why'd you get a balloon? What?
I like what that was. I'm like, I was literally thinking, like, yeah, fucking balloons. As you, that's bizarre. So as your, as Trump kind of started talking about blowing up the FBI, right? Where do these organizations go?
Right? I don't know.
Yeah, you would think I would see a Proud Boy at every Trump anything, or a Patriot, but yeah, they're all. It's the reason why they're all kind of fit looking guys, wearing like paramilitary shit.
Yeah. Or they're all really quiet right now because maybe they're the same coin of the different side, right? So to think that, so the same argument, people don't realize this, but you can use the exact same argument on both sides and achieve the goal from both directions, right? You tell the right the things that they want to hear about the left, and now they go against the left. And you tell the left what they want to hear about the right, and then they go against the right.
Yep.
And now you have conflict, right? And you have agents that play both sides to get the same goal.
Yeah.
Right. To think that these professional agents haven't infiltrated the major churches, haven't infiltrated, these organizations like the Proud Boys and stuff like that is insane. They absolutely have.
I'm saying that these agents they created these groups. That's what I'm saying.
They might. Yeah, they very well might have. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
And again, I'm focusing on China right now, but really this applies to any shadowy entity you can think about. And are there other shadowy entities that want to see America fall? Yeah, you got the globalists, you got the New World Orderists, you've got the Islamic Muslim Brotherhoodists, you've got the communists, you've got pick your pick, you've got the cartels, you've got everybody who wants a piece of the pie, which is America, because America's number 1, right? So but like I said, we're just using China right now as our example because to think that China couldn't invade America is actually not accurate, right? And that's why we're breaking this down. Okay, so then you start getting a little bit more overt and covert pressures against governments, strikes, riots, and disorders. Wait a minute. Right. Wasn't there a summer of love like a couple of years ago where like they burned everything to the ground?
Right. Yes. Yes.
Have we not been seeing more of that already starting this summer?
Right. Good
Right.
point.
Oh, what's
It's
the
right.
wait? Weren't we
Right.
just talking about a video where a public official just said, "Hey, gang members, fight the federal government." Is that not suspect?
Yeah, exactly. And right now it's just it's extreme. It's easier than ever to do it.
Yeah. And even if she's not an official agent, right? She's at least been indoctrinated and propagated to be one.
Right. Well, that's exactly right. Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then sabotage and terror to demonstrate weakness of government. This is the big one right here that everyone who has podcasts that talk about the kind of stuff we talk about, this is the one. I'm going to zoom in on it. This is the one that everybody's worried about. Sabotage and terror to demonstrate weakness of government. Because what's everybody saying? How many sleeper cells are in America right now? I don't know. The FBI said at least 1,000, right?
Yeah.
Well, we're just waiting. They're just waiting for the word. They're
Yeah.
just waiting for the word. Okay. Sabotage and terror to demonstrate weakness of government. All right. And then once they start getting more and more, oh, here we go. I forgot the side. So preparation of revolutionary cadres and of masses for revolution, preparation of revolutionary cadres and masses for revolution. Okay. Another word for revolution is civil war, right? That's another word for revolution.
It's all perspective.
It's all perspective, right? Who wins? If take our Revolutionary War against the British, right? If we had lost, it would have been the colonial civil war.
Yes. Right. Oh.
But we won.
Right.
But we won.
Right.
So it was a revolution. If they win, it's a revolution. If they lose, it was a civil war.
Civil war. Never noticed that. That's cool.
All right. So they get all this happening, right? And then you start having civil war and you start having the sides start competing, right? Because you have people talking. The same agents are talking to both sides. Don't forget that. Don't think your side's immune. Both sides are getting talked to by the agents, right? Because both sides have to participate. Boom. Okay. Right. So here we have the situation. So if anybody knows anything about Marxist revolutions, right? Marxist revolutions are founded on the principle that there is a caste system, and that there are a group of people that are marginalized and completely taken advantage of while other people sit fat on top of them. I mean, does that sound like communism? I don't know.
Right.
So the problem that you have with America is, yes, we had the slaves, okay, but we dealt with that. We dealt with it, and we had a civil war for it. Okay.
Right.
But we dealt with that. And that was prior to, for anybody that doesn't know, our civil war occurred prior to Marxist communism. Okay. So that was dealt with for the most part, right? Not to say everything was equal and everything was great, blah, 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 whatever. I'm not saying all that. However, the biggest way for them to create this revolution was taken away. So ever since we got rid of slavery, right, they have had to try and say, and Marxism especially is on the worker class, right? There's a working class and there's an aristocratic class. But in America, we don't have that. In America, we have the freedom to be able to do what you want to do. Right. And it's hard to create a class. And so they have spent 100 years cycling through classes. They've cycled through, well, it's the workers, think about Occupy Wall Street. How many years ago? Like, I don't know, like 15 years ago or something. Occupy Wall Street. That was them trying to create the worker class. Right. But again, most Americans are like, hey, why don't you stop being lazy and go to work?
Right.
Go get some education and get some skills and go get a better job. Right. Okay. And so it didn't work. Right. It didn't work. And so over the years, they've cycled through. Well, then, in like the 60s and in the 60s, we had what? Race became a big issue again. And so then we had this civil rights revolution, right? Which I'm not saying it wasn't good, right? Good things didn't come out of it. However, that was an attempt. Okay. So then what happened after the 60s? Well, then you had the female versus male thing, right? Well, that didn't, there's no women out there. I am sorry, but there is no way a bunch of women are going to then challenge a bunch of males. It's just not going to work.
Well, it depends on what it is.
I meant violently. I mean violently, in like a Civil War type frame,
Yeah, but
right?
it's because we need each other to reproduce. I mean,
Right. We
to
absolutely
think
need
that
each
there
other.
was gonna right.
Yes.
I mean, to think that there would be like a
Yeah.
man
But
versus
they did something else, which is the goal of which your whatever his name is. You're
Desmond.
gonna say, yeah, you're gonna say it like 100 times. I'm not gonna remember.
Right. But my compulsion.
One thing he points out, the one thing he points out is their goal is to destroy our communities, to destroy our societies,
Well,
right? They have to
and that's
break it
what
down.
and that's what they did. I mean, it happened, right? I mean, we were
Yeah.
just
So he's
talking.
talking about the
I mean, when is it? It used to be like mom. When did being a stay-at-home mom become a bad thing, or looked down
right?
upon? Right? You're like,
Man,
I work, blah blah blah, and I'm like, yeah, it's good.
that was the
you know,
70s with the
yeah,
female revolution, right?
that's what
Where
happened.
they
And
started attacking the family unit because the
yeah,
basis of all society is the family unit. So they started attacking the family, right? And it chipped away and it chipped away and it chipped away. And then in the 90s, it got worse. And then in the early 2000s, it got worse. And then now, 2020, we have complete breakdown of the family quote unquote unit, right? We now have genders are out the window, right? Gender doesn't even make sense anymore. We have families. What are families? We have kids turning against their parents.
right.
We have divorce rates that are astronomical.
Yeah.
Right. We have people,
You have the schools making decisions and not informing and not even consulting the parents, or making decisions for the parents.
Right. When you have the schools telling your kids that your parents are the roadblock to your success, that's a problem. Right. And that's in a conservative state. I won't name which one. Utah. All right. That's a problem. That's a serious problem, right? That
Right.
undermines the family, which undermines your community, which undermines your state, which undermines your nation. Okay. And that's what they wanted to do. That's been their goal. And Yuri Yanov talks about this process. The longer you can stay in this process where you can break down society and the moral values and the family units, the longer you can stay there, the more success you're going to have when you hit the revolutionary stage, right? The stage of conflict. And we've been in that stage. If he was talking about that in the 80s, and we'd already been at that stage for at least a decade, right?
Yeah.
We're now at 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s. We're at 60 years they've been attacking our society. Okay. And we're seeing the results of that. Okay. So then they start negotiating with government representatives. Well, did we not see that with BLM and Antifa and other organizations where they start negotiating? Yeah, absolutely. All right. And then you've got the overt stuff. Now, this doesn't really happen until full-blown conflict,
Right.
the Civil War stage. This is the Civil War stage. Minor military and paramilitary actions. We haven't hit that yet. We're still down here. Thank goodness. Large-scale military and paramilitary actions. So when they move from sabotage and terror, cells, to minor military and paramilitary actions, have an organization, right? An actual open organization who wears potentially uniform, right? And says, come join our cause. We're fighting. And they have, it's really about territory, right? So as soon as they establish a fortified location that they can call their own, they now enter this minor military and paramilitary action phase. Until they have a set location with gear, with logistics, with command structure and all of that, they have not entered this stage. This is the stage we want to keep them from. Because if they can't get to this stage, we're just going to deal with a lot of poo-poo people, but we're not going to have a civil war, right?
And you're saying,
they can take
now, what was happening down in Texas with the was it Houston area where the Muslim community wanted to buy it and put Sharia law, buy this large amount of acreage and just Sharia law done.
Could be. Yeah, there's other cities where they've tried to institute it as well. Yeah, but that's not the same as like a military stronghold. That's just like a I mean, it's the beginnings of one though, right?
That's my point. It's like they're making that okay. So what's it to be?
So
Next. Okay.
So now, no, go ahead.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Okay,
So
okay,
now
go.
we go from this section, right? In America, we've shown that on 100 years, they're getting close, but they still can't crack America. And what's happening in response, right? In the last like 2-3 years, we've had this massive upsurge in conservative and moral values, and hey, the family is important, right? That's America saying, hey, we don't want that junk. This is what as Americans, this is what we believe in, right? And there's never, thank goodness, Americans actually like freedom and liberty, right? For the generally speaking. Okay. And so now enter China. Okay. So now you have these organizations like BLM and Antifa and blah, 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 and they're in this paramilitary, pressure and not quite sabotage and terror. But let's say these cells start getting activated. Okay. Which is what everybody's saying could happen. So let's say the cells get activated. Now we've got like things popping off all over the place, right? Now, like we're actually worried about what's going on in our country, and there's discord and unrest and all kinds of stuff all over, right? Enter China, okay? And this is what Russia used to do with their nations, and we did the same to counter Russia, right? Now China sends some representatives into, we'll just say Antifa. They come into Antifa and they say, hey, you need weapons to fight the government, don't you? And they go, yeah, we do. And they go, we've got weapons. That military grade weapons, tanks, aircraft. Sure. You guys want some? And then they now get that extra government support.
Right.
Okay. So now that's how they create this minor military and paramilitary action, is now they have government support outside of them, which we did in our Revolutionary War. Who did we go to? In our Revolutionary War, who did we go to, Damien? Damien, go.
Yes. I didn't realize this was going to be a quiz. If I remember correctly, dude, is it? I don't remember. France.
Say it. Yeah, we went to France.
France. Yeah,
right. Because France and Britain were like, huge. Yeah, thanks, Thomas.
Thanks, Tom.
He's got your back, Damien. Yeah, we went to France, right? We said, hey, you hate the British, right? You want to help us fight them? We're gonna stick it to them. And it took some convincing, but after we won some battles and stuff like that, France started with like, we'll send you a little aid. We'll see what happens. We'll send you a little more aid. We'll see what happens. And then, hey, you guys are actually being successful. Hey, we got an opportunity here to, kick one to the British. All right, we're in, right? And we won, right? We would not have won. We probably would not have won if the French had not stepped in. And it wasn't just the French.
Sure.
Because once the French got involved, then the Spanish got involved, and the Italians got involved, and so on and so forth, right? And actually created a quote unquote another world war, right? Because technically the 7 Years' War would be like what we consider the first true world war. And then the 7 Years' War, well, our revolution was only like 10 years after the 7 Years' War. And so France was just like, and France lost that. And so France is like, hey, a chance to stick it to them again. Let's do it. Right. And so they did. Right. And them attacking all of the British assets around the world pulled heat off America. Because at any point in time before that, the British, if they thought that it was going to go sour and that it was serious, they could have sent way more troops than they did and could have crushed us. But it didn't happen. All to France. Right. So we got outside help. So now, coming full circle right in time to wrap this up. So we're on the West Coast. The West Coast is by far and large, as a general geographical region, more liberal than the rest of America. Okay. You have California, Oregon, and Washington, 3 of the most liberal states.
Right.
All in a row, who dominate the entire West Coast, not including Canada and Alaska, because that's Canada and Alaska. So you've got the West Coast. So now you've got the most liberal. Go ahead, Damien.
No. Just Clayton congratulating you to getting through without Clayton jumping in. I'm just, yeah, man, I'm just letting him rip. I'm like, I'm good. It's his thing. I love it.
All right. So I know I have to try and keep it small because like there's so much in my head.
Right. Like,
all right. So now you've got the most liberal area in America, right? Up to the Sierra Nevadas. Okay. Which is a giant mountain chain. Okay.
Right.
And now you've got by far and large headquarters for BLM, Antifa, et cetera, right?
Right.
And now you've got these other organizations, you got the cartels and all these other people who are like, man, we don't like this. Now China comes in and they've got little whispers in all the ears, and they're like, hey, you set it up for us and we'll come in force.
Right.
We'll come in and get you that stronghold. You get us a little bit of a stronghold, we'll get you a stronghold. You know what I'm saying? And then China now invades, right? The time is right. The situation pops off, favorable to them, and they move in. Now you also have Russia, right? So America's like, well, America's watching the world, right? We're not just watching America. And so we're like, well, we got Russia over there who's doing crazy things. And now we have Iran and Israel doing crazy things. We have China who's always doing crazy things, but they're kind of in their backyard. They haven't made anything too aggressive, but maybe kind of, sort of. And so it's like, well, we can't fully commit to this or to that, because as soon as we do, somebody's going to move in, right? They potentially could. And so now China's just waiting to see what happens with Russia. They're waiting to see what happens with Iran. Are we going to spread ourselves then? What if we shoot a whole bunch of people and then all these cells kick off all at the same time? And now we're trying to deal with all of that all at the same time. And China just whoop, boom, right there.
I don't know if China, because I understand. I think it would have to take it'd have to take a while. I mean, right now we have the riots going on in LA, and right, so there's civil unrest, and but from them to get like organized and where the states to flip, I mean, I could see it happening, because even as with what you call it, Governor of California, goddamn.
Newsom.
My mind is off. Newsom, thank you. My mind is shot today. So Newsom, is attacking the president and trying to take legal action against the president. And obviously, that's been going on, up and down that coast back when they had Chad, which, was.
Yeah. So if you think that Newsom, and I'm not going to say Newsom, like that he's going to be the person, but let's say if you think somebody like Newsom or like this deputy mayor in Los Angeles, couldn't turn on America, what happened to Benedict Arnold?
Right.
What happened to all the Confederate generals and all the Confederate soldiers who were trained as American military professionals, who then decided they wanted something different? Okay.
Right.
That's why these organizations, they spend decades working on this, right? They've infiltrated our organizations. To think they haven't is ridiculous, because the government itself will tell you they have, right? It's trying to find them and weed them out. It's the problem. But then you have the shadow governments who are like, well, do we really care? We don't care. America's going to fall one way or another. We'll just swoop in, right? And so, so that's the whole point, is like, now you have China talking to Newsom, right? China talking to Pelosi, China talking to Biden when Biden was in, right? If you think the president of the United States, China's talking to our last president of the United States. Okay. If you think China can't talk to people in California, Oregon, and Washington, public officials, and say, hey, when I move in, just don't send your police to us, create blockades so the military can't get to us. All we need is 30 minutes. All we need is an hour to gain our foothold. If you think that can't happen, you're insane, because it absolutely can.
Well, what's going to happen before that, obviously, because again, the way they're
right. We're not there yet, right? That's the whole point. China's not invading tomorrow, right?
I'm thinking about tactically, how many troops would it take for them to actually get a foothold in those states?
Well, it depends. It depends on what kind of unrest we're already dealing with. Depends on if our assets are elsewhere around the world. It depends on how much the sabotage and terror can take out beforehand, right?
Because
all of this depends.
Right, but I'm just thinking, full-scale invasion, it's very difficult to hide. So
yeah, it is difficult. It is difficult to hide.
Hey, what are all those fucking
it is difficult to hide. No, you're absolutely right. It is difficult to hide. But if you've already lost, quote unquote, lost California, if you've already lost Oregon, if you've already lost Washington to civil unrest, right? They were mad that Trump sent people in to bust up the civil unrest like a few weeks ago.
Okay? Of course. But
so the point is, right. And so I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm saying it's possible. Right.
Oh, anything's possible. All I'm thinking is like, Hey, look at those boats. Okay, why don't we just set the Fifth Fleet, over there and just
Okay, but
start
what if the
dropping
fifth fleet?
bombs on
What if
these
the
things?
fifth? What if the fifth fleet is in Iran? In the the what's it called over there? The Strait of
And I
Hormuz or
understand
whatever.
if our resources are spread out all over the place, but we would be able to respond and react. You know, I mean, obviously, if we don't have the resources, then that's it. Game over.
So what we have major military bases in California. I'm not going to deny that we do, but it takes time. It does take time for American forces to mobilize. Right? It's not like overnight.
Sure, of course.
Okay. So you have China, who's already coming near our international borders, right? They're already shipping is coming from China all the time. We have China's already getting froggy and sending stuff over. They just sent spy balloons like not that long ago, right? They're sending missiles into the waters.
They said some type of, I think it was a mold that would like kill our like wheat products.
Yeah, we just arrested like 3 Chinese agents trying to bring in biological and chemical weapons, right?
Right.
So again, China doesn't necessarily want to use the sword, right? They want to use everything they can, right? So they're gonna let the disrest like just happen. They're gonna just let America implode, and then they're gonna come in, right? And it's gonna be messy. If this happens, it's gonna be messy, right? They're not gonna come in day 1 of civil unrest. They're gonna come in day 97. They're gonna come in day 450 of civil unrest, right? Now China shows up.
Yeah. Right.
You see what I'm saying? But up to that point, they're supplying weapons, they're supplying, things, they're attacking America in all these other ways, which they're already doing and already trying to do and already preparing for. So again, if they're preparing for it and it's already starting to happen, where does that lead us to? Right? And my whole point from last week was to say that it would be impossible for China to see China invade our West Coast. That is not correct. It is absolutely within the realm of possibility. Now, obviously, there's a lot of dominoes that have to fall for that to happen, right? I'm not saying it's going to happen, people. I'm not saying China's coming to our borders. I'm not saying that.
Yeah,
right? Don't freak out.
You really, LA would have to get 10 times worse.
Yes, but the point I'm making is when you follow this pyramid, right? We are getting 10 times worse. It is getting closer and closer and closer. If those cells start popping off, if these organizations start getting funded, they're already being funded, but they start getting funded and then supplied by actual governments, right? Not just Soros, not just whoever else.
Right.
Okay. Now you're talking bigger scale, right? You send, you supply, a bunch of Antifa dudes with the equivalent of Javelin missiles. How many aircraft do you think they're going to take out? How many ships do you think they're going to be able to damage? Right? You talk about that Fifth Fleet or whatever, is there in San Diego. Hey, what happens when, like in Iran, they send a bunch of boats loaded with missiles and bomb our ships? Right? Now our ships can't move. Okay. To say like drones, right? Well, if they start shooting drones and all kinds of other stuff, right? They got submarines off the coast of our waters. I don't doubt it. Well, all of a sudden they start shooting, the equivalent of ICBMs or drone swarms who start taking out, EMPs and start taking out our electronics. Again, they don't need forever. They need a window. They need a window of opportunity to be able to get in. Right. And they could absolutely create that window of opportunity given the right circumstances, which are already brewing. That's my point.
Okay. Thank you, man. Now that was part 2. That was awesome, man. No, very good. Very interesting. Yeah, I love this shit. Okay. Again, thanks everybody for joining us. Josh, thank you for letting me join your podcast.
Today I definitely took it. Sorry.
Nah, it's fine, man. I'm just like kind of like, and then I didn't realize there was a quiz.
There's always a quiz with me. You should know that.
Right. I'm just like raising my hand. Holy crap. All right.
Hey,
thanks everybody.
So B's one of my buddies from work. I got him into the podcast and he's been like binge watching it.
Oh no, don't do that, man. but thank you. So you just increased our viewership 30%. All right. So hey, thanks for joining us. Everybody love the comments. Just keep them coming. And yeah, I think we broke double digits. Thanks everybody again. Until next time, train honestly.